and then show them to curators and let them select and deselect terms at various strengths that might apply to the collection. So one of the things here would be, can we use this sort of backwards process to have curators edit the generated metadata after the automatic extraction process? And again, this is about carrying the metadata all the way from the project collection all the way to this federated sustained reference collection. And so applying policy along each of those points is important. Okay, so key points. Hive is a service that makes metadata easy for researchers and curators. The policy-driven nature of what we're doing in DFC includes this idea of automatic metadata generation. We want to apply metadata management in the entire life cycle, so applying policy to carry collections that maybe were annotated early in the process all the way to the data products at the end. Okay, and metadata management woven into, again, this policy managed preservation of scientific workflows and research data. And that's it. So we have a lot of big questions more than big answers, and a lot of challenges ahead.
Okay, thanks.
We have time for about one question.
So you support this automated metadata extraction from data sets, from scientific data sets?
Yes, and so, for example, Maui is more oriented towards text documents. But again, we have metadata extraction can be based on the document types. You can apply policies if different documents are put into collections. And so metadata extraction could be based on a sort of structured scientific data set, as well as native language processing from a text document.
So another question back there.
Yes, first, I'm glad that you are using, you are proposing linked data in the context of digital preservation. I was involved in CASPAR, now in APAS and CIDPS, and we were proposing this before years, but yes, nobody could understand anything. So glad that you follow this direction. One question concerns scientific data. Are you proposing to directly expose them as linked, open, or closed data, or to treat them as data set that has metadata related to other vocabularies and so on?
Sure, and some of this is to be determined. In fact, I think that we're waking up to the metadata problems because we've always been concerned with the data problems. And so I think the answer is this philosophy of policy managed preservation, in the sense that certain collections could be marked as ripe for processing, and other collections can be treated as, for example, intermediate work. And so there are curation decisions that can be made at each stage in the life cycle, for example, to promote a censored data set as being relevant to a particular paper or something that somebody's working on. And so I think that part of this is going to be marrying the policy with those events that occur within the life cycle of the data, and then at that point, the policy can decide what sort of metadata extraction is required. But the grid can manage the metadata so that it is available at each point to then be indexed out into different kinds of, whether it's Cheshire or Jenna for Sparkle Search or other mediums. I don't know if that answers.
Yes. Just in the sense that if it is everything as linked data, you don't need the term metadata anymore from that perspective. So everything is connected. So.
Sure, but I think when I speak of metadata, I'm talking more about the curation of that data.
So the curation of the entire
yes.
data. Yes, thank you.
Good. Join me in thanking the speaker.
So now we can welcome our next speaker, Andrew Yanopoulos. Okay, good that you are here. We have missed you already this morning. So while he's coming, I may introduce him to you. Angelo has completed his studies in Newcastle, and then he made his PhD at the Technical University of Athens, where he's also worked as senior research engineer. And today, he is a senior research consultant at the company European Dynamics. So Angelo's research focuses on intelligent systems, particularly in the knowledge acquisition field. So, Angela, welcome, and we are waiting for your talk.
Doesn't seem to be working.
Everything's fine?
But I don't like that.
Okay.
Okay, so what I'd like to talk about is a knowledge acquisition methodology. It's about more than metadata, but it has very interesting implications for metadata discussion. And so I'm going to present an example, look at the whole methodology, and I want to discuss the implications for metadata. So this is not some widely adopted, very well-known methodology, but it's also not something completely new. It's something I've been working on since 2005. It's the subject of my PhD. There was a large project, an EC STREP project, some millions of euros, and many partners working on it from 2008 to 2010. Since then, we've reused this internally with fewer resources, but we've found use for it in areas such as the future of media, internet, and crisis management. I forgot to say the big project was about film directing. I'm going to talk a lot about film directing. And recently we've received quite a lot of interest in continuing to use that. There was a doctor from a good university hospital that we talked about this back in 2009, and I met her in Vilnius recently, and she said, we never followed up on that, let's do it. So this is the scale, so we have some kind of point of view of what we're talking about. It's been tried here and there. In the paper for this conference, there's no actual empirical evidence validating the claims of the paper, but we've got a journal paper on review with some real evidence that it works. So this is sort of the scale of the undertaking. Now, the relation to metadata, is this making noise?
Yes. Yes.
Excellent. Is that better? Good. Okay. There are many interesting topics, many interesting questions that we have to ask about metadata, like how do we get it? So obviously,